You got, Chase Owens, I think, is Adam Page a junior? I don't think Adam, but I know Chase Owens is still junior heavyweight. And even though none of you guys like Chase Owens, he's still a solid wrestler.
I don't hate him. I just hate his man bun haircut. That's all.
But they have so many young guys coming into Japan and stuff, and now this deal with CMLL and ROH and stuff, and a very close personal friend of mine, who's making his debut in ROH and stuff, actually television debut in ROH, Joseph Agai, my former tag team partner and stuff, for the Sound and the Fury. He's working with ROH, and in my opinion, when the world sees him, I'm gonna make a prediction on your show right now, alright, CJ?
Sure.
Within 3 years, you're gonna see Joseph Agai in the Super Junior tournament. Guaranteed. This guy is like the second. I know a lot of times people say, "Oh, he reminds you of, Chris Benoit or the British Bulldog or whatever." Like Joseph Agai is this generation's version of the British Bulldog, hands down. He's 5'6", 5'7", 210 pounds of solid muscle. I'm telling you, if you guys do not know who he is, you need to look him up.
Well, I don't want him to turn out like the British Bulldog or Chris Benoit, though. Please don't let him go down that road and have bad things happen.
No. What I'm going to say is you got guys like him who are making their ways up because ROH is grabbing everybody they can. It's opening up spots, on ROH and New Japan for these younger guys you haven't heard of who are so talented to make their way up. And Japan is very smart about, seeing talent and picking them up. Look at Will Ospreay. He was a British guy. Then, he worked for Pro Wrestling Noah for a while. And then New Japan Cena was like, oh shit, we need this guy. Cause Sheeta's gonna have to start fighting to keep his spot. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cause there's a lot of young lions out there and stuff, man, who are really wanting that spot and they're gonna be busting their ass to take his spot. So I want to see if he's gonna fight back or not.
I think we will see a more aggressive Kushida. I think it'll just flow naturally out of the match we saw here. And quite frankly, if that causes him to change up the gimmick a little, I'm okay with that too. If he gets rid of his, Back to the Future, going back to the 1950s life jacket, I'm okay with that as well. So, next.
Take a look in the group chat for just a second, if you haven't seen it already.
Okay, let me see what you got there in the group chat. You must not mean the Skype group. You must mean the other group.
Yeah.
Alright, pulling that up right now. Abby sent a photo.
Ooh. Ooh.
Were you talking bad about me in this group chat that I don't know about?
No. It's something we all knew was going to happen has finally happened.
Yes, a certain someone showed up at the NXT tapings tonight.
Yes, and as you're fond of saying, Huck, it's somebody that I know well and that I personally consider a friend and that I have been to many wrestling shows with, even though I'm not a wrestler. This is a guy I know very well, and he is a former developmental talent who is now a current developmental talent again.
Okay.
Going by his old name.
Is somebody going to let me in on the secret?
Cassius Ohno showed up at NXT tonight and confronted Shinsuke Nakamura.
Ooh. Chubby Chris Hero. Oh, sugar sticks.
I wish they'd let him use Chris Hero, but obviously not, because Triple H posted his proud dad photo and, welcome back Cassius Ohno.
That is disappointing because all the reports that were coming out before his return was that he was going to be allowed to use his more successful name, and apparently not.
Well, let me backtrack a little bit with Mr. Ryan Satin and say he's the one that reported that he was coming back as Cassius Ohno. So, yeah, he got that one right.
I guess so. So, I'm kind of bummed about that because I got a lot of Chris Hero merchandise that I would proudly wear to an NXT show, but I guess I'll have to buy a Cassius Ohno shirt.
Yeah, but I just saw that on Twitter. It's like, oh, well, this is interesting.
Even my wife thought it would have made more sense for him to come back as Chris Hero. She said they've already got a KO. They've got Kevin Owens. They don't need a Cassius Ohno.
I guess since NXT is its own brand now, it doesn't really matter.
I suppose.
I don't know if I'm I don't know if I like Chris Hero back in NXT. He's doing so well, like, on the indies. It's like, you know, he went there the first time, and then, you know, the rumors came out that he got released because he's not like, you know...
He didn't have the body that Triple H liked at the time.
Yes, even though he's very talented, he's not a gym guy. And then it was like a second breath on the indies, man. And he was having some kick-ass matches on the indies.
Oh, yeah. Huck, you didn't hear this show probably, but I picked his match with Zack Sabre from WrestleMania weekend as one of my top 10 of the year.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm really excited about seeing him. I'm excited because he has a job and, you know, he has a contract and he's making money. Don't get me wrong. As one of the boys, as a person, I'm like, word. Congratulations. As a fan, I'm just like, I feel like Triple H kind of stole something from the rest of the world now.
all I know is if this run goes better than his last run in WWE, I'm all for it. If it turns out the same way, then it was a bust.
Uh-huh.
So, I think we need to get back to this card, though, because we spent a lot of time talking about Kushida and then segued into Cassius Ohno returning, but we do have 3 more matches on WrestleKingdom 11, and I think Jason probably wants to talk about the Dash as well. So, we get back to Hiroki Goto defeating Katsuyori Shibata for the Never Openweight Championship in what I consider to be the most surprising match of the night, because you guys have spent so much time shitting on Goto that I didn't think this was going to go very well, and it did.
It was a good match, and I predicted Goto would win, mainly because I want Shibata to move up on the title feeding chain.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got no love for Goto, I don't, but damn, that was a good match.
Yeah, he worked to Shibata's level here. It was stiff and violent and fun.
I loved the match. I have 0 complaints about it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was one where Goto picked up his game. The one point that I really saw was where he got him up with a suplex and just kind of hit the Shoten Kai out of nowhere. And it was like, this is what I'm looking to see out of Goto on a more regular basis that he doesn't show. But hopefully now that he does have the Never Openweight Championship, he can perform at this level and keep his game elevated and let the championship elevate him.
Yeah, Shibata has already set a standard for this title, so anybody that follows him when they get the title from him is going to have to work at that same level to get any respect.
I'm so sad that you people don't like Goto.
I never said I didn't like Goto. I said they didn't like Goto, so I was not inclined to expect much from him, but I've never personally disliked him.
I knew when this match was announced that it was going to be a great match. Like, this match right here was like the kickoff to like, all right, now, in the words of Jim Ross, like, business is about to pick up. Shibata is so great in the ring, and he has like the most perfect resting murder face, as I like to call it. It was hard hitting. It was so realistic. Like I said, being a fan of Southern wrestling, it was so realistic. It looked like 2 grown men just fighting. And for those of us who know anything about the business, you know that when a match is that hard hitting, obviously the combatants in that match are like best friends. In my opinion, I think that the Never Openweight title is like, I like to call that the man's title. I would love for ROH to send Silas Young to Japan to vie for that title, just to see him and Shibata, and Goto go at it. This match right here was everything I expected for it to be. I expected it to be hard hitting. I expected for Shibata to do an immense amount of strikes, stiff ass strikes and kicks, and suplexes. I was completely surprised at the finish. That finishing combo, Jesus, man, the first half of that move, I was like, oh God, I think he's dead. And then he actually hit with the finish. I was like, yeah, he's dead. Like, oh God.
Inside out GTR, the inverted one into the regular one. It was like, oh
yeah.
I was like, I think we just witnessed a murder. Like, Shibata's dead. He killed him. All right.
Beautiful brutality. That is what I call any Shibata match.
Beautiful violence. Yeah, either Shibata murders or he gets murdered. That's every match he's in.
Murder time.
And I think that it was a great, Goto going over, was so great. Like you said, Abby, it's like now Shibata gets to move up the card which he so richly deserves. But this is still a story that they can always come back to, because now they've had 7 matches and their record is 3-2-2. So Goku's up 1, you know, Shibata's 1-2, and then they've had 2 double knockouts. So, you know, this is a story that they can always keep coming back to for years, man. And hopefully every match they have is just as stiff and just as hard hitting as this one was.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, because they grew up together and went to high school together and started out together, they can always go back, and that built-in story is there for both of them.
You know, we did reference that there was a wrestler that was going to come into Ring of Honor that was a friend of yours, and he would be in the best of the Super Juniors in 3 years, and you said he was kind of like a Dynamite Kid and a Chris Benoit. So I'm going to actually make our second Chris Benoit reference of this podcast, which pretty rare these days, but one thing I will say when speaking of him is that Booker T recently gave an interview where he said the best series of matches he ever had in his life were with Chris Benoit, because they brought something good out of each other. They knew each other well. They had a lot of experience with each other, and their creativity in those matches was always superb. And I think maybe we've just got that same relationship with Goto and Shibata, where they just bring the best out of each other.
Yeah, I would admit that when Shibata first showed up in New Japan, I was not a fan of his whatsoever. I didn't understand him. I didn't get him. And he has grown. He has slowly grown. I've slowly, you know, really started to appreciate what he does in the ring and stuff. But at first, when he first came to Japan and stuff, I was like, who is this dork?
No, my absolute turning point on him, and Abby knows this well, was the match with Nagata. Because at that point, I was like, everything this man does from this point on, I'm a fan of.
Beautiful murder.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of some beautiful murder, my favorite member of Los Ingobernables committed some beautiful, beautiful murder, defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi. Boy, did I love this match.
And last year, it was the Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleKingdom 10 that was the first entry on my matches of 2016. Same trend this year. It was this Intercontinental Championship match that is the first entry on my best matches of 2017.
It is amazing how much that Intercontinental title has come to mean in New Japan in such a short amount of time.
It was a beautifully worked match. It was a beautiful match, period.
Mm-hmm.
Tana's hair was floofier than usual. That stupid-ass ponytail and the stupid-ass braids.
Oh!
And that horrible theme song.
God, the music is so bad.
Yeah, the new theme music needs to go away. That was not an improvement for Tana.
No, not at all. Not
How
at
is he supposed to air guitar to that?
He proved this morning he can't.
Yeah, I did like the theme whatsoever. I'm coming to expect Tanahashi to have do something weird with his hair now, like always. I just really pay his hair no attention. I think that myself, a lot of people who are watching it and were on Twitter, didn't realize until Naito's entrance that the Titantron was in the shape of an eye.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it's oh shit, the Titantron's an eye. Did they set it up specifically for his entrance? But this match was so beautiful. I loved the fact that Naito worked the leg, and then Tanahashi started working his leg, and the back and forth dynamic between those two was so great.
Yeah.
I think that, and I may be biased because Tanahashi is my favorite Japanese wrestler of all time.
That's an unpopular opinion on this show. Tana gets no love here.
How the heck he's not like...
I like Tana, but it's that hair.
You don't like him? Hold on. You hold his hair against... Are you serious?
Well,
yes,
I think she holds that...
folder of pictures on my phone called Tana's stupid hair.
I think it's that. I think it's that, and it's also the whole John Cena Hashi thing. The fact that he's the most.
That's Jason's deal. Mine is strictly the hair.
Yeah, I'm the Cena Hashi guy. I'm the one that calls his high fly flow the 5-knuckle frog splash.
I give Tana a hard time about his hair, but I respect the hell out of the man. I think he's great in the ring.
And I've said many
I just
times.
make fun of his fucking hair because it's just laughable.
And just so
No
you know,
man
Huck,
should have hair that good. It's not normal.
Huck, I've said many times that whether they like Tana or his hair or not, I think that the Tana Okada matches I've seen are some of the best matches ever. So, there is respect, but he's like overpushed sometimes. They just rely on him too much.
I love Tanahashi because he puts out like and if you say he's the John Cena of New Japan, then maybe so. I mean, look, the guy sells merch. When this guy wins, the fans are on their feet. When this guy loses, you see fans crying and stuff. Like he draws emotions from the crowd, which as a wrestler, that's what you want to do. I'm one of the boys, and I love Tanahashi to death. And I was like, I even put on Twitter, if there's a God in heaven, please give me one more Tanahashi title run. Just because I know that, Tanahashi is, man, we're not, look. we're gonna
fight now.
I'm telling you, we're gonna fight about Tanahashi. And I know that Tanahashi's getting up in age. He's in his mid-30s, close to 40 and stuff. Yeah,
hell, that's like being 20 in New Japan. Just look at Nagata and Nakanishi.
Exactly.
And
Age
guys like
is
that.
the same in New Japan as it is anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, so, I love Tanahashi. I think this match was so perfectly blended. And I love the finish. I love the fact that even though, Tanahashi did not go over, Naito went over, that, it didn't make Tanahashi look weak, and it didn't, both the guys got over with that finish, if that makes sense.
I will concede that Tanahashi is a hell of a worker. This was a 4-star match. It wasn't just Naito carrying Tana. Yeah, Tana pulled his own weight, where he kicked out with like 1/1000th of a second before 3 with that reverse tornado DDT. That was a thing of beauty from Tanahashi right there. I'm just sick of seeing him with titles. I don't think he needs another title reign. I don't think it does anything for him. I don't think it does anything for New Japan. I'd rather see some of the other guys get the title. Tana doesn't need a title to be over.
You know what does something for me, Jason? You know what does something for me? That suit he wore to the ring. I want that entire suit. I want to cosplay in that suit.
The purple one that Naito wore?
Yes. I will find a wig to make my hair look like that, and I will wear that suit.
Oh my God.
You can get a green wig and swap that out and be the Joker too. It could be like a dual purpose cosplay.
Just go out to a tree and get a nest, and that'll, that's pretty much Naito's hair right there.
It's starting to mullet though. If you notice, it's like shorter on the top and it's getting longer in the back. He's getting into mullet territory now.
Yeah.
And when
you talk about people's hair. I'm sorry.
Oh,
you talk about people's hair. I hate Naito's hair. Oh my God. It looks like, so I have two sons with autism, and my youngest son likes to cut up paper, and I swear his haircut looks like he just gave my son a pair of scissors, and it was like, do your best. Yeah, it's like, here you go, just have that, homie.
That's absolutely why I love Naito, because it just fits his personality so well. It's that I don't give a fuck look.
Hair.
Yeah.
He's losing his hair. He's got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't believe that any grown man would walk out in public with their hair looking like that on purpose. And I'm a professional wrestler. I'm a black guy in the South, and I've had, silver hair before. When Cisco was popular, I had, silver hair at one time. And so I can't, for me to say that, it's something amazing.
Did you ever have peach-colored hair?
Have I had what?
Did you ever have peach-colored hair?
Well, with this black...
Peach, like Yoshihashi's. Like Yoshihashi Okada peach hair.
Yes. I've had green hair. And I'm a 280-pound black guy, and I have, peachy, silver... I've had blue hair before at 280 pounds. So for me to say somebody has, a horrible haircut is staying alive.
Poor Naito.
No, not poor Naito.
Yeah, the only thing that would have been better would have been a hair versus hair match. And it was a double DQ.
I'm sorry, as long as Naito does matches as beautiful as this one, he can dress his hair any way he wants, and I will be all about it.
It was a beautifully worked match. I have zero complaints about the match at all.
Yeah, I would even go higher than 4 stars. I'd go 4.5, 4 3/4. It was that good.
And Tana and Naito bowing at the end to Tana, it just kind of brought everything full circle with the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Naito's thing is that Los Ingobernables are the heel faction and that they run things and that they can be jerks, but the respect thing, it's like, yeah, we're a jerk, but we're also respecting you.
Well, some of them are respectful. Others wrap chairs around other people's necks and head for the fences.
You saw a little bit of that, too, in UFC with Garbrandt and Cruz, where they were kind of trash-talking beforehand, but afterwards they hugged it out. You know, they wouldn't even touch gloves to start off that fight, but there's something, I think, a respect you gain from getting in the ring and just giving it your all with your opponent giving it all, and you realizing that and saying, okay.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, we even heard that from Dominic Cruz after the fight. He was like, you know what, I respect the hell out of that guy now. He did something nobody else could do.
I think my only complaint with this match is the fact that my only complaint with this match is the match that followed, because this match, Naito Tanahashi was so good that it could have main evented any number of New Japan shows.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that it was the appetizer to the main event really hurt my heart. The fact that, you know, and it was, don't get me wrong, it was well deserved for the main event was well deserved to be talked about. It definitely was. But this match was so wrestling pure, that it was basically like, hey, here's this match, but there's more. That was my only complaint, was that this match could have been a main event anywhere else on any of the cards.
And I will actually say, if we're going to compare the co-main event to the main event, I think the length of the matches here probably has influence in my mind, because I feel like Naito versus Tanahashi was absolutely the perfect length. It wasn't too little, it wasn't too much, it was just right. And by the end of Okada and Omega, as great as that was, and it's going to be 6 stars and match of the year and all that other stuff, it just seemed like it passed the point for me where it was great. It was like, it had already been great, and they were still going, and Okada was still hitting the Rainmakers, and Omega was still kicking out of them. I'm like, you guys could have gone home 5 minutes ago, and I would have been good with this. But it just kept going.
I had that same feel, too, where, yeah, the Tanahashi-Naito match felt like it was the perfect length, and it told the perfect story, and the psychology was great, where Omega and Okada just kind of went on and on and on, and I was just kind of flabbergasted that it did go on. It detracted a little from the match, not much, but enough that the Tanahashi-Naito match stood out above it just because of what it didn't do, I guess. It's not so much what it was, but what it wasn't.
The one thing that will tip it in the balance in favor of Okada and Omega for a lot of people is this was Omega's crowning moment. Even though he didn't win, which you and I were really, really hoping for in this match, this was him getting to showcase why he deserves 100% to be in a main event spot, in the top position, right up there on the level with Okada and Tanahashi. He was every bit as much a star as them. And that entrance video with him as the Terminator was almost the exclamation point on that. And then it got even better.
That was great. Now we know that Kenny Omega goes commando because he left that guy laying on the ground still in his boxers.
Yes, he did. Huck, what were your thoughts on the main event?
First of all, I think that Kenny Omega's Terminator entrance video was twice as good as Triple H's.
Yes.
At WrestleMania.
Yes.
Even though Triple H had Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever, and he had like the actual Terminators, you know, WWE is a billion-dollar corporation, New Japan isn't. And Kenny Omega still had a better entrance than he did. This match, in my opinion, and I'll put it on Facebook and I'll say it on your podcast, was probably the greatest match I've ever seen in my life. For the fact that to me, this match was Bret Hart versus Stone Cold, where Stone Cold, instead of tapping out, passed out, and he became a bigger star, because he didn't give up. Like, this match, even though Kenny Omega was already a star, he's already known worldwide, this match made Kenny Omega a main eventer right there. Like, Okada basically did the favor for him that Ric Flair did for Sting back in the 80s. Like, he took, and you know, we've seen Kenny Omega have some really great matches, as a junior heavyweight and as a heavyweight, and this match showed everything that he could possibly do. And before anybody else can say it, this was the worst bump I have ever seen in 10 years of wrestling, and being in my 10 years as a professional wrestler, and my 30 plus years as a wrestling fan. That was the worst bump I've ever seen in my life. Hands down, period. If you had been scraping me up off the floor, I would not have gotten back up.
The table
that
bump?
scared me half to death.
Yeah, the table exploding.
The exploding table that obviously wasn't made in Japan, or else it would have just bent.
You
Had
have
be
to
an
remember,
imported
Kenny
table.
had already stomped on it on top of Okada once.
Well, the thing about the table was the fact that it wasn't so much that the way the wood exploded. It's the fact that the metal frame didn't bend. He basically went through the metal of the table.
Right, he could have been decapitated by the damn thing.
And then, hopefully now New Japan is seeing, how dangerous their setup is at WrestleKingdom in the Tokyo Dome, because, the wrestling ring, the area around the ring is elevated, 6 to 8 inches, maybe almost a foot from the actual floor.
Yeah, and Kenny went over the top rope, through the table, and down off that elevated stage thing.
Exactly. That was, oh my God, that was the worst bump. That, and then the Super Tiger suplex off the top rope. I thought Okada, my wife, of course, once again, I was watching my wife, and, as a wrestler, as a fan of wrestling, if you study it like we all do, that for the most part, he landed that bump about as safely as humanly possible. To the casual fan, like my wife and stuff, she was legitimately worried about Okada's neck. She thought that spot was unneeded whatsoever. She was like, I don't understand why they would do that. She was like, this match was going so good. She's like, so much could have been wrong with that one spot. It was just reckless.
Is that a dragon suplex or a tiger suplex? I thought it was a dragon, avalanche dragon suplex.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a dragon suplex. I'm sorry. Yeah. She felt like it was totally unneeded. I can admit with you, Stevie, I think that the finish went a little too long, with the numerous rainmakers and them switching up, trying to do the power drive and stuff. I think that it went a little too long. Maybe 5 minutes is right. About 5 minutes too long. But even with them going, a little bit longer than I personally would have liked, there's no denying that you would not see a match. And it was just based off of the emotion that we all want to see Kenny Omega finally become the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, and then come so close and still not make it,
I don't think it was 5 minutes too long. I think that opening part where they were doing mat work and everything, that was the part that was too long. It's like the first 10 minutes, it was so slow, and so even the people in the crowd weren't into it. But once Kenny spit in Okada's face and they went outside, from then on it was like balls to the wall, and they didn't stop. I think they just went a little bit too long in the foreplay portion of the match.
And it did seem like Okada hit 51 different rainmakers on Omega during the match, which I guess helps to Omega's credit that it took multiple rainmakers to finish him off.
And there aren't many people that kick out of the rainmaker. Only Tanahashi and Nakamura have done it, so.
I like the respect that Okada and Gato gave Kenny Omega at the end of the match also, where they said, Kenny Omega was the greatest foreign wrestler in New Japan history. Of course, you guys listen to the Japanese commentary, I listen to the English commentary, but one thing that Steve Corino, because they're both Canadians, had said, and which is totally true, Kenny Omega started off in Japan. Wrestling in Japan, wrestling in the States, et cetera, and then he basically dedicated his life, his entire career has basically been dedicated to Japanese wrestling and being a great Japanese wrestler and being, Kenta Kobashi, et cetera, which is why the Japanese fans love Kenny Omega so much, which is why people got so drawn into him, because he's almost one of them, but he's not one of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
I love the match. I don't think I would have gone 6 stars on the match, but it was definitely a 5-star match.
This is one that you
Meltzer
won't forget.
I think Meltzer just did that 6-star thing because, I don't know. And he watched it after he heard everybody say, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my whole life.
Well, it's definitely not something you can ever forget seeing, having seen it.
Hell no.
That's for damn sure.
And the thing is, I watched it the second time, and it held up the second time. It was even better the second time I watched it.
Go ahead, Doc.
I think the reason why it was better the second time around, because you noticed. The second time around, even myself, I know the small things that they were doing in the match that you didn't pick up watching it live on NewJapanWorld.com. You start seeing, the things that Okada does his facial expressions, the way he sells, the way he actually pinned. You know, first he was doing a couple of cocky pins, and then you start seeing him really ramping up when he was trying to get the pins in and stuff. Same thing with Kenny Omega. It's like, it's a small thing in wrestling that makes a good wrestler great and make a great wrestler legendary.